Hey everyone, can everyone hear me okay? First thing, I guess, saw this article the other day that kind of relates to my video last week about Cuphead. It's by Rami Ismail of Lambert Games, and he is talking about obviously difficulty in games and how really it's kind of an arbitrary thing and that people shouldn't get hung up over people using different settings. Thought it was a good read, and so here I'll include the link in the chat here. Guess I'll add it. I don't know if I add it to the description if it actually changes that or not. And with that, I am probably just gonna do some dev work here, and you guys can kind of see what I'm doing and see kind of how the sausage is made. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. All right, let's see here. So I have got pulse there. It's on this one, so that works. I'm currently working on a VR project, kind of developing a VR creation tool for non-developers to be able to make stuff. Unfortunately, my controllers are both charging right now, so I'm probably not going to be able to actually test anything for a little bit, but you can kind of see basically what I've got here is you create a room and you're able to drop different elements of furniture and stuff in. If I hit play, actually the headset should still work, so you can see a saved room. And it I don't think I have tracking yet. What is this? Oh, there we go. Okay, so you can add like doors and pictures and chairs and stuff. Everything is very placeholder right now, but it's kind of cool because you can actually drop the things in, save it to the room, and be able to like rotate the stuff on the floor. And I'm right now working on actually getting it set up so that not only do you kind of drop stuff in, but you're able to actually reselect it after the fact and edit it. So how that is working is in this, what I've got is a feature placer class right now, which is kind of becoming a catch-all, and I really need to refactor it because it's just got basically everything packed into one here at this point. And I'll probably take a few days to do that soon. But what it really does is it kind of controls what mode you're in. Like you can be placing features, selecting features. What else did I have in there? kind of choosing, the toolbox is really choosing what features you want. Actually, that's kind of an interesting thing, is that I originally had done this where, if we go back to Unity, you can see this blue square here. If I look over at it, let me see if it still appears. It does not, so let me force this thing to appear. There we go. It was this kind of 3D way of showing where, like, what your options are for your different furniture pieces, and you can, you could point and select them. The thing I realized was that is, while that's, very cool and very VR because it's in, three-dimensional space, and it's not super intuitive, and it's not adding all that much value to someone who is just like an interior designer and is going to want to drop furniture into a thing. So what I actually have created instead is I've created a hand, which I can focus on here, and then there's this tablet that will actually, if I hit play, let's see if I can do this. Bring up the, that's not working. Why is that not? Oh, because this is off. Creates this tablet that then has like the icons of the furniture. So it's very similar to if you had an iPad or anything like that that you could actually use, and basically you just use that finger and that will, where did the finger go? Oh, you're way over here for some reason. Oh, probably because that's there. So you can just use the finger, and it's very intuitive in terms of like how you would interact with an iPad and things, which is kind of goofy, I guess, for having a touch screen in a VR thing. But like I say, this is kind of meant to be a tool that would be used by people who aren't super versed in VR or super versed in software development, so you want to make it as accessible as possible for them. So then we have obviously this selector thing. Like I say, this is what I'm kind of working on now, is being able to, after you've placed items, now I want to be able to point at them, select them, and then be able to edit things like where they are, or or like what orientation they're facing, things like that. So what I will do is I will go back into this very long feature placer script, which we've got here. The last thing I just did was kind of had it set up so that now you can point at a given feature, and it will get that selection thing kind of on it, so letting you know that that's what's being pointed. And it's not really, I know I'm calling this update feature being edited, and really what it is really being hovered. So I'm going to add in another method here. I'll call this update feature being hovered, and then we'll do another placed feature pf. I'm going to create a variable for this too. Feature being edited. We're going to do another one called placed feature. Feature being hovered. Drop this down. I don't know if any of you listen to, there is a podcast called Lost Cast, which is Lost Decades Games podcast, and they talk a lot, they obviously talk a lot about game dev and kind of analyzing the game industry and things like that. And they have a phrase of make it work, and I think someone else had said it before them, but that podcast is where I heard, and it was make it work, make it pretty, make it fast. So this is obviously in the make it work stage right now, where I'm just kind of putting these things in here and saying, making sure that these different things actually work together, and then from here I can obviously optimize this and kind of move these things where they, like, all this stuff about the highlighter should probably be actually on that highlighting circle thing versus it being in my controller script, which actually isn't even in the controller script or on the controller object. It's actually on the kind of quote-unquote cursor that appears when you're pointing at a wall and like, you know, the picture frame is like, here's where it's going to go, there's this sort of, I'm calling it a cursor, and that's what's actually holding all this right now. So it's really kind of hacked together right now, but we'll fix that eventually. All right, so if this is kind of a new thing that I've been adding to a lot of my functions, rather than just assigning something, and you could do this with properties too, I suppose, but rather than just assigning something, you quickly check and say, hey, if this has already been assigned to it, then don't do it again. It's particularly because in like cases like this where I'm going to start changing a lot of things. If I'm already editing a given feature, I don't need to change that to be the feature being edited again, and then move the thing, check which surface it's on, and highlight and rotate it and all those things. So here what we're going to do is we are going to, now I have a dilemma of, do I want to have two highlighter objects? I feel like I just want to give the highlighter object two materials. We'll just use the same object for it. So yeah, we're actually going to keep this in here for now, and that obviously could probably be, these could be merged into one feature eventually, or one function. And we're going to say feature being hovered equals PF. And yeah, I think what I'm going to do, and do I want to do this in here? I think I want to, yeah, I'm going to create a class to do this inside of the selection object. So what I'll do here is I'll go to selection highlight, create a new C# script, and I'm going to call this highlight material manager. It's actually very descriptive and probably better to be that way. Name for a class, and that's going to go on to this. This is the actual model. It's a quad that has the material in that, and then this is actually just a empty container, which I can use to scale this up and down without affecting the pulsing effect. So with this, I am going to now open up that highlight material manager. I am going to add in two materials here. We're going to say material hover and select, not select, yeah, selected. Oh, that works. Oh, we'll make both those public. And I'm also going to want to make sure that we have a mesh renderer. So we're going to say require component type of mesh renderer, because I am going to have a reference to a mesh renderer in here. Just call it MR for short, and then on start, actually we'll say on awake, like getting stuff out of the way in awake if I can. We will say MR equals get component mesh renderer, and we know that'll work because we're requiring that component. Let me double check my own thing here. Yep, definitely got a mesh renderer. Let me get rid of this collider on this too. I don't need it. This is never going to collide with anything. So we've got our pulse, we've got our hover selected, so I can actually have the hover material and then a lock material. Now the only difference here is that one is blue and one is green, and it's just kind of let you know that there's a difference once you've actually locked on to a feature that you're going to change. We have that here. I'll go back here and we're going to quickly say public void and I tend to use update, but it's really, I shouldn't, because update is its own method. So we'll say change material. We'll pass in a bool which is selected, and we're going to actually just default that to false. And that just means that if we ever just said change material with empty parentheses, it would just assume that selected means false, which is just kind of a nice little time saver. And most of the times it's probably going to just be jumping back to hover rather than selected, so we'll keep it like that. And what we'll do here now is we'll say, actually I shouldn't call this selected, we'll call this is selected because I don't want it to conflict with this up here. And we'll say mr.material equals is selected. If it is, then we want the selected material, and if not, we just want the hover material. Very simple, but now we just have access to, and then now we can access this through the feature placer. And I will continue to be a terrible person and add more crap to this, and I'm going to say public highlight material manager highlight mat. Add that to my placement cursor. And so basically now that has a reference to this specific object here now, so it can tell it to change that. I could, I guess, technically just access it through the selection holder, which I already have referenced here, but that just kind of adds more like finding it has to do in that, so it's easier just to have that reference there. Let us jump down here now, and we're going to say, okay, so if feature being hovered is not changing, then feature being hovered equals that, and then I want to change here, I want to change that highlight material dot change material, and we'll just keep it as the default. However, down here we're going to do the same thing, but here we're actually selecting it, so we're going to say that that is selected parameter is actually going to be true. So this is equivalent to me saying false in here, is why I can do that. Let's see here now, what do we want to do? Do I want to add another? Yeah, we'll do that quickly here. It's an easy fix we can make and a good thing to do. I'm going to quickly say void update change highlight position. We're going to call for a placed feature there. And all this is going to do is we're going to actually just pass in all of this, copy and paste it into there. And now we're just going to have to, instead of doing all of this here, we can just say change highlight position PF. Oops, and make sure we tack that with a semicolon. And I can do the same here. So that just kind of saves us a few lines of code there, which obviously this particular class desperately needs as it is. There's even more improvements I can make into all this, but for now we'll leave that as is. So now what we really need to do in this is, if I want to make, right now how I have it is that when I hit play and I point at things, and I can kind of do this with my, I think with my sleeping controller here. Let me see if this actually will work or if this is on. Nope, that's the wrong. Let's see here. This one. Here we go. So here, now you can see that as I'm pointing at things, it is highlighting them. And except that's actually using the select. That's actually technically selecting them right now. So we're going to get rid of that, or we're going to change that rather. So let's jump back to Where am I calling that? Let me just do this the easy way. When you have a very messy class, you can always just find references to things. Oops, not that one though. I want update feature being edited, find references. Here under select feature raycast. So I want this to change to being hovered. And then likewise in here I actually do want this to be being edited, because in this case here what's happening is the moment that you place down a piece of furniture, if it's able to be edited, like right now just like the chair and the table are, then we make it the one being edited. So that works here. Now what I want to do though is I want to also be able to do it where once you're pointing at something and you are hovering it, now I want you to be able to click down on it and be able to change that being hovered thing to something that you're editing. And so we'll do that by switching to in our onTrigger down here, what we'll do is we'll say if how am I doing this right now? If feature being edited is null, then place a feature. I don't love that. I want this to be if mode equals editor mode place feature. That seems more reasonable. Else clear feature edit and then switch mode to place feature. So that was basically like once you had placed that chair and you were done rotating it, you would just click the trigger and it would go back to placing features. Don't think I want that right now. Actually, no, we can keep that in there. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say else if mode equals editor mode dot, and this is going to start complaining at me because I just have too much stuff here. Else, here we go. Editor mode dot select feature. So now if we're in select feature mode and we click the trigger down, then I want to select the feature that's currently being select the feature that's currently highlighted. So how we're going to do this is we're going to say change what do I call this now? Update feature being edited to the feature that's being hovered. So now what we should see here is that if I unplug these, I think they should have enough battery for now. We can actually do this, and let's jump into VR and see if this works. Play. So what should happen now is I can highlight things. They're highlighting in blue because they are not currently selected. But if I go to, say, this one here and click it, now it's selected. However, I don't think I can edit it because I don't have, while I have selected it, I haven't changed it to switch the mode to edit feature. So in here, after we update the feature being edited, we do need to make sure that we switch the mode to editor mode edit feature. I want that and the other thing I want to do here quickly is I want to say feature being hovered equals null, and that just makes sure that that gets cleared out for us so that once we start hovering again, we're not jumping to something random. So let's go back to Unity. This is very much my stream of consciousness here. So now I can do this. I can go to, say, this one here. I can click, it's now selected, and there we go. And now I'm able to edit it. Cool. And if I click again, it should potentially exit this and go back to placing features. Yes, and now you can see up here that I am in place feature mode because I am pointing. I currently have the light selected as the thing that I'm placing, so I can add some lights to the room. And I can look at my handy dandy tablet, and I can select, say, the portraits, place those, but then I can also go to a chair, or let's do a table. Add that, and let's see if this actually switches it to, it does, cool. Nice when things actually start working. And so now I'm editing the table that I've placed. But now what I should be able to do, actually, you know what I don't have right now is a way to switch to edit mode. Alright, so that'll be the next step here. Hey there, Learning Unity. It's not tracking out because it's on the floor now. Let us decide how we want to make this switch modes now. I think what I want to do is I want to go into the tablet. Turn off this toolbox for a second here. Where is the, here's the tablet, and I've got icons, I've got this save icon, we'll find that in our scene. What I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this, change this to edit icon, bring this up here, and we're going to just position this negative. Let me go to tablet. I'm going to create, or we're going to import a new asset. What do I have? This is also the fine-tuned art of just kind of bumming through your existing content and seeing what you can use. Shared projects. I feel like Dark Ride Simulator had something. So this project initially started as creating like a carnival ride, but it just got kind of overblown. So I wanted to simplify it and also make it something that is more universally usable. I'll definitely come back to the carnival ride thing because it's a really cool. I think it's a really cool way to that you can create kind of your own track that you ride on and put in features and stuff. But this is just kind of a little bit easier way to get to a working prototype. With all this said, let me see here. Is it an editor? Nope. Where are my optimized sprites? This is one I had one that was edity, so to speak. Don't see one, so we're just gonna use the wall icon because why not? I tend to do all my icons and sprites as pings. However, if you do that and you have the transparencies, you always have to make sure to check off alpha is transparency. Apply that. And now what I'll do is I'll add this. I'm going to duplicate this icon save. We'll make an icon edit material. And all that's going to change about that is that we're going to add this placeholder material or placeholder texture to it. I'll apply that there, so that is now what we'll use to activate the edit mode. However, I don't want the save icon script on it anymore. We're going to remove that component, and I'm going to create instead a C# script that is an edit icon. Open this up. Let's just close out of most of these because we don't need them. I'll keep tablet icon, I'll keep save icon, edit icon. Okay. So save icon, I'm actually going to use a lot of this info still. I'm going to put all this in here, and I'm going to make this inherit from, I created an iTouchable interface that basically says that when that finger touches it, it does something. What it does is this touch method, and we'll make this, hey Andreu, we will make this go to placer dot, can I do switch, I can do switch mode from here, cool. I did make that public, good for me. And we will go to select feature when you, because technically you're not entering edit mode as much as you're entering the selecting something to then edit. So we'll do that, and we just need to make sure that our edit icon actually has that script on it, and we're going to add the feature placer to that. No, not the. Now we're all mixed up. Here we go. Placement cursor, which has the feature placer class on it. Put that in here. Save there. We will hit. I'm going to hope it's going to be that simple. Oh, the other thing I wanted to do, though, I'll worry about that later. I probably want to turn off this edit icon script when it's not, or this entire object when it's in edit mode, so you're not trying to go back to it. But for now, we'll just keep it there. That's fine. So let's hit play, and let's see if this all works out. Headset is tracking. Okay. I've got my tablet and my... So now what I can do, I would select like these pictures and stuff, and I can technically do that, but it doesn't actually, I can't edit those. It's only the stuff on the floor right now. So what I will do is let's click on, say, this chair. I can rotate it with the left and right on the touchpad. Go like that, and then we will click out of that. That's what I should do is when I switch out of edit mode, that should really go away. You can fix that after though. I can add some pictures to the wall. But then if I want to go to the selection mode, I can now touch that. And sure enough, I am now in selection mode. Cool. I also want to add some kind of a like laser pointer type thing so that you can actually see what you're pointing at, because this isn't the most intuitive method right now. But now if I go here again, we go here, and we got ourselves a little loop, folks. We can go to that, we can jump back out, we can add a door over here. Excellent. So this is building up. So really, I mean, this is kind of my stream of consciousness-like process for building out. I am using the HTC Vive for my development here. I'm also intending for this to eventually build out so that once you've built like the rooms in this case, you can build them out to a WebVR experience as well. So you could just use Google Cardboard or anything like that. But right now, yeah, it's all being done with the Vive. So yeah, this is kind of my process right now, at least. I've got kind of an outline of the different features I want to add. Obviously, right now I'm adding them basically all into this placement cursor and feature placer script, but over time I will break these out and kind of follow a more proper system of like having things where they are actually like on the game objects they're actually affecting. Likewise, I want to make like this catalog right now is literally just exists as an array in the feature placer. I want to make this into a scriptable object, which is actually going to be similar to something I do in, we're going to be getting back to the non-game game development videos, and we're going to create a catalog of the levels that you create for your game so that you can easily access them through that. rather than them just being kind of like an array just kind of floating in the universe. That's also going to help so that you can easily switch in and out different setups. So say that you had like a demo version of the game that only had 2 levels versus one that has 100, you can easily just drag and drop that scriptable object on. So things like that. Quick plug for my Patreon page if you want to help support and continue making live streams like these and my videos happen. Always appreciated. It's just at patreon.com/boardtobits. I'm probably going to wrap up this particular live stream right now, and really appreciate everyone who's hung out today, and hope you've kind of seen my process for better or worse, learned some stuff, and I'll see you guys on a future video or live stream. Thanks again, and have a good day.